Stephen with a V, S-T-E-V-E-N, last name Ferrandi, F-E-R-R-A-N-D-I, 44 Sylvan Road, Narragansett. Thank you, council members and board. I have some concerns with a few items in this zoning amendments, state zoning amendments. I know there's been a lot of the talk about definition of the family, but the only thing that's really changed here is the 3 unrelated went to 1 per bedroom, moving it to 5. So, and that was heavily, and I mean heavily, lobbied and advocated by the rental industries, mainly in Narragansett. I mean, I went to all the hearings, and it was most people from Narragansett. And even though this is going to change the complete state law, there was also some lawsuits, and I believe they're still going on at this point. This one went to the planning judge, the zoning judge, which was Judge Lamphere, and originally he stated that the town's unrelated ordinance was unconstitutional and vague. Now, there's been some change from that. I'm not sure if that's where it stayed, where it is. I believe he said, the town or someone was trying to get him to vacate that, that statement. But I think what it basically did was put the state's unrelated ordinance kind of in a tizzy, in a way, where it was very unclear and vague. That's how he voted. So I just want to make sure if we go through with this legally, you know, where do we stand with the current lawsuit? Is the town appealing it now? We haven't heard anything. Are they going to let it stand? Did the judge vacate this lawsuit? And everything's back to square one, but the town still has an outstanding lawsuit about unrelated. And it was against the town. It wasn't the town's issue. It was someone didn't want the unrelated because they were caught with more than, you know, we were enforcing the ordinances at the time. They brought up the evidence, and it went to the court. So at this point, if we're not on solid ground, I know there's a lot of talk about all kinds of lawsuits and everything else, but if we are not on solid ground on the unrelated ordinance through the state, and this change actually was started in 2023, making the 1 per bedroom, making the 3 unrelated to 1 per bedroom up to a maximum of 5 in 2023. It didn't get passed then. There was more lobbying done. It got passed in 2024. That was well before any lawsuits even came about with this. It was after that, in the summer of last year, 2024. So my point would be that if there's any scintilla of evidence or any scintilla of the point of that being an issue with the town or not being correct with the state's law, we're relying on the state. So if their law isn't completely correct with this, with all the lawsuits, and if it is, then what happened to make it that way with the lawsuits? Why, are we appealing this? Is the state cleared of that lawsuit? So that's my point on that, and that's very important for the town. And I know what's going to happen in the future is our 3 college student ordinances is going to get very unclear to a lot of realtors that have been telling me to say, well, we have the 5 unrelated now, so now there's going to be 5 per student. You're going to be hearing that in the upcoming meeting. So, I just don't think this is ready at the point. I think it's still unclear with this. I realize that the state passed this. 2 weeks, less than a month later, our town had brought it up, and I think that's what happened. The last council wasn't too sure about it. That's why nothing went forward with this, and it was in the middle of the lawsuits. I mean, we're trying to do the right thing. So let's try to do the right thing all along the way here. Let's not try to skip any steps. I know there's a different set of solicitors. They may have other opinions, but this is very critical to what's happening in Narragansett. So I just wish that if you need a pause on it, take the pause or whatever you have to do to kind of clear it up. That's my point. And the second one about the basement and the cellar, I don't know if this clears things up, not specifically for Mr. Durkin or not, but I believe, and maybe the building inspector can clear it up, I believe you need a ceiling height, a certain minimum ceiling height to make it a habitable room, no matter what it is, first floor, second floor, or a basement. So if you're going to fix up a basement, and it's less than, I believe you have to have 7-foot heights, I believe, to be habitable. So that's why that habitable portion in the basement, most people don't have basements in this town. I realize it. It's wet, there's a lot of water here. So if it's 7 feet, according to the bulk zoning, the potential is there to be livable. So they'd rather see you be livable. If you're going to call it livable, it's livable. If you don't put the bedrooms in, then you're able to put them in because it's livable. That's what the 7-foot height goes for. So I think that's where, so if that comes out, okay, if the guy's got a 7-foot basement, that comes out of the equation, and he's got a 10,000 square foot lot, then he can build a 3,100 square foot house under the current zoning and still have that and still have a potential for the basement. So what happens when he puts, he's not supposed to build down in the basement. So that's why I think it clears it up with, hopefully that clears up the basement. And the cellar thing was thrown in by the state. That was nothing to do, the state had all their hands all over that. I think what happened was they wanted the potential of some of the cellars or a basement, whatever you want to call it, to be livable and buildable. But if you don't have the 7-foot ceiling, it's not livable anyway. Maybe if you can get Wayne up here, if you want to ask him, maybe he knows that. So that might clarify at least that point up. But as far as the unrelated, and this unrelated law has been codified. It's gone to the Village of Belterre of the United States Supreme Court. I know nobody talks about that anymore. It was back in the 80s or the 90s. And that was held valid. Now, the state wants to come along and throw one per bedroom. That's a little bit different than unrelated. So I think there's a little distinction there. And I think that has to be worked out before you really go forward with this. I appreciate my time. Thank you, Counsel.